welcome back to Marketing Decoded. I'm Abby.
I'm Ashlee.
And today we're going to be talking about how to create a killer campaign for your clients.
So first we have to establish like what a campaign is. Mm-hmm. That is just regular posting, brand awareness, getting people out there, and it's talking about anything from their services to fun little facts about like what they do, or recognizing birthdays and anniversaries of their employees.
Just keep them fresh on the mind.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But a campaign actually has a purpose. It has a goal. It has sort of an end game, so to speak. And you are working towards that using a lot of different things. It can be social media. It can be paid ads. It can be so many other parts that are woven together to create that campaign.
Mm-hmm. So basically what I'm understanding is that regular content day to day, that's more of a broad advertising sense. And then a campaign would be something that's intentional, built with purpose, built to solve a goal that the client is trying to reach. And it tells a unified story through multiple different marketing channels.
Yeah, exactly. That sums it up really well.
Mm-hmm. While each piece might have a similar look that keeps it all consistent, there might be different messaging depending on what audience you're trying to target, and be built different based on just what it is, whether it be a mailer or a billboard, a social ad, a video, etc.
Yeah, and sort of while you were talking, this idea popped in my head, to put it on a larger scale of things that other people are going to really understand, or that people are going to understand at a really broad level, is Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. Every ad that Coca-Cola does has that red in it, mm-hmm. Or the little swoosh, or at Christmas the polar bears. It's a Coca-Cola ad, mm-hmm. whether it's got the brand name on it or not, But right now, or they may have already ended it, I don't really know. It's depending on when this episode's published. But they're doing the campaign with the names on the bottles. Mm-hmm. That is something that they bring back, and it's really popular, and then they drop it off, and mm-hmm. then they come back with it. And you have this almost mad dash to find your name. Mm-hmm. My name's Ashlee with 2 E's, so I've never found a bottle. But they make even generic ones that are share a Coke with your homie, mm-hmm. or share a Coke with the goat, or whatever. And so they're reaching a broader audience, mm-hmm. than just the people whose names are on those bottles. But that's just a little, share a Coke campaign, mm-hmm. that they do. And it's really a targeted and intentional, hey, buy a Coke,
mm-hmm. And I definitely can see how they could have started with the goal of we want our customer base to be more involved in talking, maybe because I know social media is really big, getting our brand out for themselves on social media, posting a picture. So
yes.
That could have been their goal that they had in mind to then create the campaign off of.
Well, and when they first started the campaign, they actually were using the hashtag share a Coke. Mm-hmm. And so they were encouraging you to post your picture of your Coke, or of you sharing it, mm-hmm. with somebody, and with that hashtag. So I saw in my Facebook memories a few weeks ago where when they did the first round of it, and this was 3 or 4 years ago. I don't even remember. It might have been longer than that. They did it, and my husband actually bought the Ashlee one that was spelled wrong, and used the permanent marker to put the E on it. Mm-hmm. And then he found his name, Jason, and bought, we had both of them. Mm-hmm. I think we drank them, instead of keeping them as mementos or whatever. But yeah, I even saw that, and that puts out that social media presence, and it puts people to work for you, mm-hmm. instead of making you do all the work.
Organic marketing.
Exactly, mm-hmm. exactly. So using that example, you have similar goals with those everyday things that you're doing, or that Coca-Cola's doing. Their logo, on a sign. That is your brand awareness, and it drives sales. If they're hiring, it could also be, something like that. It could have that target. But a campaign is really how you tie it all together. Mm-hmm. And that share a Coke ties that all together for that specific purpose. So you use a mix of strategies. So you're not just doing, you know, they don't just use that bottle. They've got it on social. They've got it on billboards. They've got it on paid ads on social media or on commercials. They've got it everywhere, you know. For our clients, you know, on a smaller scale, when you're doing a campaign like that, you're gonna include items even like press releases. So if you're doing like a hiring campaign for a client and they're looking to really grow their, you know, their workforce because maybe they've added a shift. That's news. That's not just, you know, we need to hire people. Adding a shift is increasing the amount of jobs, increasing the economy in the area. So you're not just like wanting to get people hired. You want that attention that goes along with why we need to hire. So you do a press release, you post reels, you post a bill, or you have a billboard. You could even do promotional items, you know, that you hand out at job fairs. And that might not be something that, or, you know, you hand it out at that job fair and it might not be something that somebody goes, oh, I really want to work here. But later on, they still have it and somebody else might be like, hey, what is this company? And then you're like, that they're able to tell you, or they're looking it up. So it just increases the brand awareness, even though that wasn't the campaign goal.
And speaking of goals, definitely any first step you want to do when sitting down to figure out a campaign is to set a clear goal.
Yes. But the funny thing is even though you're setting a clear goal,
those don't have to be the end goals, that the end results. Right. You can have many results that come, but to just, you know, have a base, you need to start.
Yeah. Exactly. And the goal can be simple. Like, it can be as simple as, I want my phone to ring more, you know, because that is a goal. You know, I want more people to know about me. That's still a goal. It's brand awareness, and it's a little more of a basic goal and campaign, but it is still a goal, and it's still something that DMC or, you know, anyone helping you with your marketing should be able to do. But one thing that I always ask my clients is like, what are we trying to work on? You know, yes, I'm posting your birthdays, I'm posting your anniversaries. You know, if you're a bank, I'm talking about your account types. You know, if you're a telephone company or internet company, I'm talking about how fast your internet is. But is there something specific that you're rolling out?
What is a problem that we can help you solve?
Exactly. Exactly. Like, I need to know that in order to really reach that, reach into my brain and pull out a way to do that. Having a goal can really help you to know which direction that you want to go in, you know, especially like writing the content or figuring out like what kind of avenues you want to use, because you've got markets, you know, if you're targeting an older market, you might want to do mailers or things like that. But like, as a designer, you know, are there things that you have seen that really make a difference in how you change things based on someone's goal?
Definitely. I think that the point of having a starting goal is because like if I'm doing a campaign for a healthcare company and they come to me and they're like, we want to reach an audience, I need to know exactly what audience, because if they want to reach younger, like kids, student wise, I might put a picture of children in school and specifically put messaging that's like, get your checkups before school starts. Check up on those allergies coming up, because there's always stuff going around in schools. Versus like, if they wanted to target maybe an older generation, we could really emphasize their telehealth options, emphasize their, you know, online scheduling, something that would make it easier for that group of people. So having that goal at the beginning really does set the tone and what you're going to put into the materials that you're designing for that campaign.
Yeah. It's also going to really make a difference like on what areas you're doing that advertising. So like, there's an age difference between us, and like, I know that your first place you go for social stuff is Instagram. My first place is usually Facebook. Right. Yeah. But it's because of like it's because of the age difference, but also because like I was around when Facebook came out, you know, and Instagram followed. So Facebook was probably well established by the time you were old enough for socials, and then Instagram was new and fun and, you know, that kind of thing. And so you have to be able to look at that. That's really delved into in another episode that we have, you know, the targeting the right audience. But that's also important when you're doing a campaign and for your goals and stuff like that. So I know you've been working on a specific campaign for one of our clients, and they were, you know, you were doing multiple designs based on what they were trying to accomplish. Tell me a little bit about that.
So one of our clients had reached out to us and said that they wanted to try to do something a little different, because normally we would do like just one mailer, a social post, and maybe a door hanger, and it would just almost be like holiday themed, like it's Christmas time, you know, come get our services. But this time they really wanted to take more of a human connection approach. So I almost consider that like the goal that they came to us with.
Right.
Like, we want to connect to the human side of our customers. And they wanted, you know, 3 different audiences to be reached, and each have 3 mailers, 3 social media ads, 3 door hangers, and then 3 Facebook covers. And so how I went about that was I first identified the 3 target audiences that I wanted to try to reach, which was young adults or young adults / young families, young adults / students, and then like older adults, more seniors.
So what business sector is this company in?
This is a like fiber internet telecommunications company.
Okay.
So going into that, I knew, you know, just as simple as imagery, that I wanted to have, you know, an older couple maybe on their computer, like doing stuff that would require fiber. Yeah. And then same with, you know, maybe a student getting homework done on their laptop in the library, anything like that. And then with a family, maybe like sitting down to do homework on the computer with your kid. And then that leads into the messaging. For the student, or for the one with the families, I said something along the lines of like, from bedtime stories to morning meetings, our fiber has you covered. Yeah. So then it kind of resonates with that audience more. Like, I read bedtime stories. I have morning meetings, and I need them to be fast. I need, you know, them not to be choppy. And then as far as like another audience, seniors, you know, I put stay connected to your loved ones no matter the miles.
I like that.
Because, you know, nowadays everyone is Zoom calling, everyone's FaceTiming to see what's going on with, you know, your cousin in Alabama. And that's a very important thing to the older generation, to be able to stay in contact with their people. Yeah. So it really just is appealing to the ethos of each different audience. And you kind of have to think a little detective-like and think like, put yourself in that audience's shoes to let that determine what you're going to be putting into the campaign.
100%. And that's the thing about a campaign is you can have a brand awareness campaign that's just, you know, really simple, really like just getting your name out there. You know, yeah, we're here. You can have campaigns that are, you know, call us because you need us and here's why you need us. But then you have those campaigns that are just like the little like heart, you know, warm and fuzzy little
tugging
like
on the heartstrings.
Exactly. And if you can do that, people are sold. You know, people love puppies, kittens, and babies. So, you know, and old people. So like if you're you know, looking for a way to connect to an audience, you know, like you were with this specific campaign, you know, including wanting to stay in touch, because what grandma doesn't want to hear from their kids or grandkids, like, you know?
Hello.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't hear you.
Yeah. Now, if they've got technical difficulties or they're not tech savvy, the client can't help with that. But you know, the fast internet they can help with. So another campaign that I worked on recently that was sort of the opposite end of that spectrum of, you know, wasn't really necessarily heartfelt, wasn't necessarily, you know, brand awareness, but it was an awareness campaign of something that a client was doing, is a local power company was giving back capital credits for the first time in their history. And it was a really big deal because they had their board of directors made the decision to be able to do it. They've, typically invested that money back into the company, into making the infrastructure really, really good. It's a really large coverage area that they have. And so giving back, this money, these capital credits is really a big deal. But the thing is because they've never done it, people didn't know how to get them, and the other thing is because they've never done it, they started way back in, years past. So some of the people that would receive capital credits are dead and gone. So their beneficiaries or people that own that land now, their family members, whatever, they're getting them. But in order to do that, there's a whole level of showing who you are, why you're entitled to it, all of that. So there's a lot of information that has to be given. Like, first off, you got to know what a capital credit is, So I had a meeting with several people here in the office to just brainstorm, how do we do this? And the obvious thing, because social media is huge, was to put it on social media. But then, of course, because we're looking at an older generation, they're not on social media, not always. So we were like, okay, well, everybody's getting a power bill. Hey, why don't you guys put it in your messaging on the bills? We also were like, let's design some flyers that you can hang in the window of the drive-thru when people come to pay their bill. We did some, we created a a landing page just for that, with all the information. We did a video or two with them and, explaining what capital credits were, why they were important. It was just really a large undertaking. And I think so far, they launched it in May, I think. And so far, there's not been a whole lot of problems or kinks that we've had to work out, other than some of the appointments were taking a little longer than they thought because it's a new process to all of them. So we've had to make some tweaks on that. But I think overall, DMC really did a good job, and they did a good job of communicating with us what they needed and how we could help. And we've really, we did press releases. We did, or they did press releases, I'm sorry. They had it in the news, and so people that aren't looking on social to see the posts are reading about it in the newspaper. So they're still getting it, and they're still able to be like, oh, I might be eligible for a capital credit. And so that's just that's a very niche,
And I feel like that's a really good example of how a goal in a campaign might not always be a financial or a number goal. You're not trying to reach a number of people or make a certain amount of money. You're just trying to educate as many people as possible.
Education is a goal, in itself. So that's a really good point. I had not thought of it that way.
So we've talked a lot about goals, but what's next? Once your goal is set and clear, then the building phase of the campaign starts. Ashlee, as an account manager, what are the first questions that you ask your client when ready to start building their campaign?
So obviously, what's the goal? But since we've already covered that, you have to also talk about what the tone is. Are we having fun with this? Are we being really serious? Are we, do we want to have it be geared towards sports fans? Do we want to, because you can take a different tone. And when you're speaking, I've talked about this a lot in different podcasts, but when you're speaking as your client, you have to really use their voice, even though their voice might not be my voice. We have a specific client, that you and I collaborate a lot on, that he's very fun, very he jokes around a lot. So he even has a product called Flock Off for birds, to get rid, it's a bird deterrent. And the name sounds a little, it could be saying something else. but he's fun. Like, so, you know, my personality fits very well with him. So when he tells me that he's got a new product coming out and he needs help with a name, I know that I can sort of push the envelope a little bit with him, whereas I might not be able to with other clients. Because even though he's being professional and wanting to sell this product, he's also wanting to have fun with it, you know? And so we're able to make fun logos based on that. You know, we've done videos for him, and, you know, we're able to go out in the field with him, literally, and talk to him about what these products do and cut up and joke and really have a good time. That's one of the questions that I always want to ask is, you know, what kind of tone are we taking here? What's your budget? Like, budget is a big thing, because, you know, if you want paid ads on social media, unfortunately a lot of social media stuff is pay to play. You know, if you want billboards, they cost money. We can do targeted ads on like Hulu and, you know, Disney Plus, all these different outlets, but they cost money. You know, so are we keeping it simple and just, you know, using like the lower cost options, like maybe some printed flyers,
just
a website, just posting, that sort of thing? Or are we really delving in with some money and throwing some dollars at it? Because the more money that you throw at something, obviously, the more broader audience that you reach, you know? And I say broader audience, I mean larger audience, because
more eyes are going to be on it.
More eyes, right? Because you can really actually nail down with demographics and stuff on that target audience. And so you're really showing it to people that need to see it. And that's another thing that I always like to ask people. So like, you know, the campaign you were talking about earlier, if you're targeting young families and you wanted to do specific social media ads for that client, then you would want to use specific, like, targeted demographic information on social media to find them. You're not gonna put that ad in the newspaper. You're gonna put it on social media and pick young families and, you know, parents with kids this age or that age or things like that. You're even gonna maybe target certain neighborhoods if you know that that's where a lot of young families are living. If you're trying to hit older people and you know that there's a subdivision that is generally a retirement, you know, where people go to retire, then you're going to target that area. And so all of these questions, like, eventually come out when you're talking to a client. I don't really have like a list, so to speak, of what I ask. It's sort of a natural thing that happens while we're talking about it. Yes, their answers really end up, you know, steering me in the next direction that I want to go to ask those questions. Just like your audience has to be consistent, the message has to be consistent too. So like if you're specifically reaching this young family, then you have to, and you want that young family to be reached across all different platforms. You can't have the billboard say one thing and then the social media ad say another. Or you can't use hot pink on the social media ads and then use
the billboard be blue.
Right, exactly. One thing that you and I are actually working on with one of our clients is a specific campaign on social media that specifically, like, we're posting their birthdays, we're posting, you know, all of that stuff, but we're bringing back, like, nostalgia marketing is really big right now. So we're bringing stuff back from like the 90s and the 80s, and we're talking about like burnt CDs and, you know,
cheese.
Yes, exactly. So we're bringing back all of these things, and so those specific posts, you're designing those in a specific way, using those fun bright colors that go along with, you know, the 80s or the 90s. You're bringing those, bringing those colors in as part of as part of the branding of that campaign. So it's almost like a mini brand, you know, within itself. So you have your overarching campaign that is just everyday, organic, whatever. But then you can have little mini campaigns. And you can have multiple mini campaigns going on at one time. And a campaign doesn't necessarily mean that it's every single aspect of marketing. Like, it doesn't have to encompass a billboard, a reel, a post, a flyer, I can't even think of all the other things, you know, promo items. You can literally do just a social media mini campaign and it still be just as effective. Or you can do just a billboard campaign and, you know, you're wanting to announce a new location. Billboards are a great way to do that. You want to follow it up with some social media more than likely, because that just, you know, repetition is key. But you don't always have to have that flyer, that mailer, that door hanger, all of those other components to get that message across.
I kind of picture almost like a TV show. Like, you have the same characters in every episode, but maybe the season has like a problem that they're fixing that season. But the next season will be a different problem that they're having to deal with. But still, it's still the same characters, the same TV show, the same everything.
Yeah.
But, you know.
So that's actually an interesting take on it. And I want to expand on that. Because, like, one of the things that... So, you know, you have TV shows like You're a True Crime Girly too, right? So, like, you have like TV shows like Law and Order, you know, and they start with a case, and by the end of that hour-long episode, or 45 minutes with commercials, you know, they figured out who did it. That's not how it works.
And then you'll have some episodes that are like two-parters.
Yeah, and they leave you hanging.
And that's like a big campaign.
Exactly. But then you have some shows. I'm gonna just put it out there. One of my favorite TV shows is on Prime, Bosch. I don't know if you've watched it or not, but if you like crime detective shows, definitely need to check it out. But it is based on a book series, and there are like 30 books. Well, there's no way to encompass 30 books in a TV show, you know. But he had, you know, each book is a case that he's working on. But it's got little subplots, you know, his romance, his kid's life, his this, his that, you know. So the season for Bosch is the entire case. So he's solving one part of the case in this episode. This problem's coming up in his family in this episode. And then on the next episode, he might be solving that problem. He might be, you know, he might be working on this case. But then something else might pop up because he's a detective. He's not just able to focus on one thing all the time. You know, there are so many other parts that are happening. Sort of like our jobs. You know, you might want to sit down and work on one graphic all day long. But how many emails do you get where we're like, hey, we need this today?
Right.
Exactly. And I'm getting a phone call while I'm trying to work on an email. And so, you know, same thing with like these TV shows. They're working on overarching things. And Grey's Anatomy is like really...
They have crazy subplots.
Right. But those subplots continue from even episode to episode, season to season. You know, and so... But then each... Like, you might have one medical case in an episode that you're solving.
Those are almost like the filler social media posts that we post every month.
Exactly. So that's like the filler. That's like your birthday. You know, we offer these services, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, exactly. But then your, you know, subplot where this person is dating this person and are they going to get married or are they not going to get married? That's a little campaign. But then if it's going from season to season, that's an even bigger campaign, you know. I love when we can, like, come together and, like, figure out, like, a little analogy for these things because it, like, I think it really, like, resonates with people when they have no idea what a campaign is or what we're talking about when we're talking about all these little things, you know, marketing things, but everybody watches TV. So they know, you know, just by these examples, like, sort of what we're talking about.
And speaking of like collaboration and like us working together, that is what I consider one of the biggest things in a campaign. You have really everyone in the marketing agency, whether that be the videographers, the graphic designers, the account managers, even down to our interns, working together to get this campaign done.
Right.
So we were speaking earlier with New South Ag and the campaign we've been working on for them. You know, normally it would just be me and you on the team, you doing the account managing and then me doing the graphic design, making flyers or social media. But now since we have been doing this campaign, you've said we've been doing like video content. So we've been bringing in like our video editor, Kevin, who goes out and films. And then we're also bringing along some of the interns. So it really is important in an agency setting that if you're working on a campaign, it's really built on collaboration.
Right. And when we started working with him, we also had to revamp his website. You know, so we revamped the website because all of those campaign elements had to have somewhere to lead to. You know, so the website had to be up and running before we could really start doing a lot of things to send people. You have to have somewhere to send people. And that's sort of one of the things that, like, we collaborate within the agency. But for a campaign, you really have to have all of the components working together too. So, like, that billboard needs to have the website on it. And that website needs to have, you know, the message that you are trying to portray.
Where you can find them on social media.
Exactly. Your social media needs to have some mention of the campaign in some form or fashion. The flyers, a QR code, send them to social, send them somewhere. A promotional item that has something to do with it, send it somewhere. I thought it was really cool that we recently did a t-shirt for a company with a QR code to send them to a website. Like, that's really cool. You know, but like everything just sort of has to tie together because otherwise the campaign's going to be really ineffective. Speaking of like ineffective campaigns, one thing that we try to do when we're working on something like that is, you know, check in with our clients, and we're looking at the numbers, you know, from the back end of Facebook and social media when we're using that for the campaign to see like what posts are getting a lot of likes, you know.
Have your goals evolved at all now that we're seeing what is happening with the campaign?
Because sometimes you might even, like, if their goal is to get the phone ringing, what if it's ringing too much? What if they don't have enough people to cover that?
The goal might need to evolve into how do we move these people to our social media?
Yeah.
Or it might build the online request portal.
Or it might need to become a hiring campaign. We need more people to answer the phones because they're ringing.
Ringing too much.
You know, so, I mean, we have to be able to adapt. Our clients have to be able to adapt. And, you know, we have to be able to make that campaign change when it needs to.
Like, it's not, a campaign is never static. It's always can constantly be evolving.
Yeah, exactly. So to give sort of a recap and, you know, relate things back to the TV show analogy that we started using, you know, campaigns are multi-layered. So you got a lot of characters, you got a lot of subplots, you got a lot of locations, you got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff happening. But there's an end goal, and that end goal is, you know, for a TV show is going to be the viewers. It's going to be high ratings. It's going to be entertainment. You know,
maybe education.
Exactly. So for clients and for marketing agencies, you know, those look like bringing in a lot of employees to get the job done, bringing in a lot of different marketing tactics. It looks like, you know, having a clear goal that you want to accomplish. And like we said, that goal, as long as it's clear, can be as simple as making the phone ring.
It doesn't need to be a metric.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be measurable. And you don't have to have a way to measure it with numbers. You know, it just has to be, like, it doesn't have to be ratings, you know. Because I've always wondered, like, you know, back to the TV show part, if somebody's watching it live, but then they, you know, you've got people streaming it later, when a network decides to cancel a TV show because ratings weren't high enough, are they taking into account the number of times it's been watched later? Because I might not be watching it live, but I'm going to go back and watch it the next day.
And you might have a show even that isn't having the higher ratings, but the people that are watching it are like so loyal and devoted that they're not going to get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, campaigns sort of work that way too. You know, you're going to have a goal.
And going along with that, like, as far as, like, TV, you definitely need to have, like, a villain that people can connect to and, like, protagonists that people can identify with and empathize with. And so I think that's really important. And so that's really important when it comes to design, because how you're designing is how you're going to make people feel, like, whether it's warm and fuzzy, whether it's, like, I should be concerned to do this right now, or basically just the mood that you want to set. And then also as far as design, you want each touch point, so like the mailer, the social media ads, the billboard, to all feel connected, both visually and in the messaging that you're putting on the billboard.
Yeah, it's sort of like you don't want, you know, to open an episode of a TV show in some random like time jump, you know, or if you've ever watched a soap opera, like how they'll have a kid that, you know, was 8, you know, 2 days ago, but now he's 14, you know, they, like, it's crazy, you know, how they do that kind of stuff. My grandma used to make me watch soap operas with her. But, like, you have to be consistent, and that's definitely not consistent.
And then one of the last things to sum it all up is the collaboration between the strategy side of marketing and then the design side of marketing, and that's really what brings the whole campaign to life.
Yeah, so to bring it back to TV, like your writer's room, your actors, like they have to be the producers, like the editing team, everybody has to be really on the same page. And I think here at DMC, we're really good at, you know, getting together and collaborating on a goal, you know, and trying to figure out how to make it work, because we all have different experiences, we all have different clients, you know, and we all like, but we've all at some point or another worked on a similar goal of, you know, like we talked about the capital credits. I'd never worked on a specific capital credits campaign, but I knew enough about different campaigns that I had worked on that I could relate it back to it. You know, we've never worked on farm
knowledge to bring to the table.
Exactly. We've never really worked on farm products, but we've sold things. You know, we sell ourselves, so we have to be able to, like, say, here's why you should buy this product. Here's why you should use our services. And so, you know, we're able to relate campaigns back to, you know, personal experience. And also to how they relate to us, like the share a Coke thing. You know, like I remember specifically my name not being spelled right, you know. But I was able to, but you know, it was a joke for my husband.
A funny memory.
Right, it's a funny memory, and it obviously sticks out.
Makes you think about Coke, yeah.
Exactly. So like sometimes, you know, it's like Christmas.
Your stocking
you know,
stuffers.
you've got your little stocking stuffers, your little like smaller gifts, and then you've got
your
the
PS5.
big, yeah, exactly.
In the big box.
Yeah, exactly. And so you really have like all these different elements that are just wrapped together to make things cohesive, to make things, you know, to reach that goal of, you know, doing whatever your client needs you to do.
So definitely, a strong campaign does a few things. It, one, tells a clear story, it meets people where they are, and it makes it easy for them to take action. When all of those pieces come together, that's when you really start seeing results.
Exactly. And speaking of like pieces coming together, that's sort of what we're trying to do with this podcast. You know, each episode is building on other topics that we've talked about in the past, or they're coming together to teach other agency or, you know, other marketers how to best do something, or to teach our clients, you know, what we're doing behind the scenes for you, or different things like that. And that's why we really like doing Marketing Decoded. We've talked a lot about TV shows and episodes, and I think that's a good spot to end our episode of Marketing Decoded. You'll see me and Abby again on another episode, and we're just tying them all up together. You know, we've got a end goal of educating people, and so this podcast is pretty much a campaign in itself, isn't it? So, again, I'm Ashlee.
I'm Abby.
Thank you for joining us. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.